In our headlines on this Wednesday afternoon, May 24th, here in South Korea. The groundwork for Nuri's third launch into orbit has been laid out, and if all goes according to plan, Korea's homegrown space rocket will shoot for the stars later on this Wednesday evening. Meanwhile, South Korea's team of inspectors to Fukushima has concluded its day one of a two-day on-site survey of relevant facilities to better assess Japan's planned discharge of radioactive wastewater into the Pacific Ocean starting this summer. And Seoul and Washington have taken joint action against individuals and institutions in the IT sector working to fund Pyongyang's missile and nuclear weapons technology. We start at the Naro Space Center over in Kohung, South Korea, where final ground preparations are well underway as Korea looks to launch its Nuri space rocket for a third time later on this Wednesday evening. I have my colleague Lee Kyung-eun standing by live at the site of the launch. Kyung-eun, welcome. I see the weather there, Kyung-eun, is looking fairly good.
Right, it's not bad at all indeed. Well, the weather here is now nice and breezy. It's a bit cloudy as you can see behind me, but what really matters is the wind again, and it is nice and breezy as I said before. And it's actually a good time to talk about the weather because as we speak, the Korea Aerospace Research Institute will decide the finalized time of the launch, taking into consideration of the weather conditions and the optimal time they will prevent collisions with space objects. And based on their preliminary assessment, last night Nuri will blast off as planned at 6:24 p.m. with technical and weather conditions all good to go. Nuri properly erected and connected with the umbilical tower, and weather-wise, mild breeze and low chance of rain in the forecast. Now, once officially confirmed, the umbilical tubes will inject fuel and oxidizer into Nuri, and the sending devices will be detached. And for the very final 10 minutes before the liftoff, Nuri will be out of human hands, and it will go through one last final checkups on its own and start counting down by itself.
Right, I see. Kyung-eun, if all goes according to plan, when exactly will we know whether or not this launch was a success?
Well, Sunny, in order to answer that question, I think we have to first define success of this launch. Remember, the first and second launches were test flights, all meant to test the rocket's capabilities. But this time, Nuri takes on its first actual mission, putting 8 working satellites into orbit, including the main satellite, the commercial-grade next-generation small satellite 2. So completing this mission will be key to the success of the launch, and it will be decided just 13 minutes and 3 seconds into Nuri's flight. Take a listen to what significance that holds.
And we have accumulated quite a bit of expertise on this, and we believe in this and the following subsequent launch in 2025, 26, and 27, we will able to test different payloads under different technologies and also different situations, and we will be able to achieve a serviceable launch vehicle in the future.
Now, after satellites enter into orbit, the next stage will be receiving beacon signals and actually communicating with the satellites. But as for the launch itself, it is a success once the satellites get into their target orbit. Sunny?
I see. All right, Kyung-eun, thank you for the latest from the site of Nuri's planned launch, which is set to take place later in the day. And Kyung-eun will be there to keep us posted. Moving now on to neighboring Japan. Delegates from Seoul are engaged in their second day of on-site inspection of Fukushima on this Wednesday, before heading back to Tokyo for relevant talks with authorities there on Thursday. Now, that being said, our Han Sung-woo recaps details of the inspection yesterday, that is Tuesday.
South Korea's team of 21 experts dispatched to Japan to inspect the crippled Fukushima nuclear power plant wrapped up their first round of on-site inspections on Tuesday night. The team's leader told reporters that they had observed all the facilities they planned on seeing.
We concentrated on how and with what kind of system configuration each facility removes nuclides from the wastewater.
The 9-hour inspection proceeded under the guidance of the Tokyo Electric Power Company, after which the head of the inspection team, Yuguki, explained that it had focused on checking the plant's multi-nuclide removal system known as the Advanced Liquid Processing System, and the K4 water tanks currently storing the contaminated water, as well as the operation control room. He added that the group requested extra data from Japan regarding matters that required further examination. Yu refrained from touching on the Korean public's anxiety on whether Japan's planned discharge of the wastewater is indeed safe, saying instead that his team will be focusing on the science.
What I mean is we're going to review it according to scientific standards, whether Japan's facilities are proper facilities and whether the wastewater's discharge process is being carried out appropriately.
On Wednesday, the second and last day of inspections, the expert delegation will visit a chemical lab that analyzes nuclides, the plant's tritium dilution system, and the facility responsible for actually releasing the wastewater. Han Sung-woo, Arirang News.
In other news, Seoul and Washington together have taken additional actions aimed at choking off funds that finance Pyongyang's illicit weapons technology. More individuals and institutions have been slapped with sanctions. Our foreign affairs correspondent Choi Min-jung reports.
South Korea and the U.S. continue to take joint action against North Korea's illicit cyber activities, which help to fund the regime's nuclear and missile programs. Seoul on Tuesday slapped sanctions on 7 individuals and 3 institutions. This is the 7th round of sanctions put in place against Pyongyang since the beginning of the Yoon administration. Since October last year, South Korea has targeted 43 individuals and 44 institutions. Those on the list are guilty of either contributing to financing the regime's nuclear and missile development, training IT personnel, or evading sanctions. The individuals are also accused of violating the human rights of their IT personnel. Of those on the list of fresh targets, Seoul and Washington simultaneously imposed sanctions on Jinyoung IT Cooperation Company and its general manager Kim Sang-man. The target institution is an IT company under the North's Ministry of Defense and is guilty of dispatching IT personnel to Russia, China, and Laos. Kim Sang-man was responsible for illegal foreign currency earnings by being in charge of overseas IT branches. The joint sanctions in the cyber sector come about a month after the two countries slapped sanctions on the same target, Shimyeonsup, for the very first time. Seoul's foreign ministry said South Korea and the U.S. have continuously sought ways to enhance the effectiveness of independent sanctions by designating the same target. Diplomatic authorities of Seoul and Washington are also jointly hosting a symposium in San Francisco Tuesday local time to discuss measures to block Pyongyang's illicit IT activities. The forum is the second of its kind after the two countries co-hosted an event last November to tackle crypto theft by North Korea. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
And North Korea remains on an annual U.S. list of nations that are deemed lacking in the fight against terrorism. The U.S. State Department's Federal Register was published on Tuesday, and it also includes Cuba, Iran, Syria, and Venezuela. With regard to North Korea, this is reportedly its 27th year on the list. The Federal Register is handed in to the U.S. Congress each year as required by law, and the export of military equipment and services is also banned to countries on the list. Signs of activity have been detected at a North Korean launch site, fueling speculation that the regime is ready to launch its first spy satellite, as earlier announced by its leader Kim Jong-un. Our Lee Seung-jae has more.
This is a satellite imagery of North Korea's Seohae satellite launching site taken this past Monday. According to an analysis from Radio Free Asia, the image shows a new facility being built, which is believed to be the launch pad from where the North's first ever military reconnaissance satellite will be launched. Comparing satellite images of the same location from a week earlier shows that construction at the site is progressing rapidly, and North Korea may be quickly moving towards launching the satellite soon. And experts say it may be just a matter of North Korea looking for the best weather conditions to go ahead with the satellite launch. The Seohae satellite launching ground is located on the country's western coast in Dongchangli, North Pyongyang province near the Chinese border. This site is the North's only known permanent operational test ground for major weapon systems, which includes intercontinental ballistic missiles. Meanwhile, other satellite images show that North Korea is preparing for a massive military parade to mark the 70th anniversary of Armistice Day, which the regime often calls its Victory Day. 4 troop formations were seen moving to the medium airfield in Pyongyang, a military training ground in the capital. Voice of America says that while between 200 and 1,200 troops were seen in the recent images, that number could increase further as it gets closer to the anniversary day on July 27th. With North Korea potentially showcasing its latest weapons during the military parade and a spy satellite launch looming, watchers say the tensions on the Korean peninsula will continue to rise with little chance of dialogue between the two Koreas. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
At the National Assembly earlier on this Wednesday, the government and ruling party are creating a task force to tackle demonstrations that disrupt daily lives of the broader public. Now, this is according to the head of the People Power Party, Yoon Jae-ok. The task force will be run by the Prime Minister's office in its early stages and will seek to maintain public order and protect people's rights and interests. Measures include the restriction of rallies in urban areas during rush hour and the restriction of overnight rallies. Korea's auto exports have been riding high above the global market doldrums, and in a bid to bolster this trend, a new investment strategy worth over $10 billion has been shared. Our business correspondent Lee reports.
South Korea is preparing for a new era of future cars by supporting the country's auto parts industry. The Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy on Tuesday highlighted the car parts sector as a starting point of mobility innovation, saying it's essential to support the industry in responding to shifting auto paradigms, electrical, AI, and autonomous. During a meeting on Tuesday, the public and the private sectors decided to inject around $10.9 billion into the auto parts industry. This is to nurture talent in the future car technology sector, expand exports of car parts, and enter into the global supply chain. It also set a goal to increase EV production to 5 times the level it's at now by the year 2030, while expanding exports to key markets such as US and Europe and high-potential markets such as the Middle East, East Asia, and the ASEAN region. Through this, the ministry expects car exports to exceed $80 billion this year, an all-time high. Furthermore, the government thinks this may bolster high-tech industries such as system chips, large-size displays, and a biohealth sector. To support car parts companies, a memorandum of understanding was signed by automobile companies and 8 related institutes. Auto giants including Hyundai Motor, Kia, and General Motors Korea pledged to help stabilize auto part companies' liquidity while taking part in joint tech development in order to strengthen partnerships with the car parts industry. These new measures come amid impressive growth in the country's car industry, where its exports saw a record high of $30.9 billion from January to April this year. Monthly domestic car production in March, meanwhile, surpassed 400,000 units, the highest figure in 6 years. Lee Dae-hyun, Arirang News.
Also, the government here and corporate heavyweights have requested a review of specific terms within the U.S. Chips and Science Act to the U.S. Commerce Department. Our Moon Hae-ryun has more on the request itself as well as its implications.
The South Korean government has teamed up with several companies and organizations to submit a request to the U.S. Department of Commerce to redefine the terminology in the Chips and Science Act. According to a public notice announced by the U.S. Department of Commerce on Tuesday local time, Seoul raised issues with several of the Act's terms and conditions due to it placing an unreasonable burden on companies investing in the U.S. The most pressing issue outlined was the guardrail provisions limiting expansion of production in foreign countries of concern, including China. While the Act provides funding to semiconductor firms, one of the terms for firms looking for funding states that the expansion of advanced chip manufacturing in those countries should be limited to 5% for 10 years. The South Korean government, along with companies such as Samsung Electronics and SK Hynix, has requested for this to be raised to 10%, double the current limit, as well as redefining what is meant by advanced. Another request was the clarification on the scope of restricted activities under the technology clawback term of the Act. Currently, engaging in joint research and technology licensing with foreign entities of concern means that companies will have to give up whatever funding they receive. The South Korean government has requested that companies currently engaged in joint research and technology licensing contracts prior to receiving funds should be allowed to continue those activities. Seoul has also asked for redefinition of the term foreign entities of concern, as the umbrella term is too vague and broad, and restrictions should only apply to certain companies that have been placed on the export restrictions list. In addition, a demand for the Department of Commerce to sign a non-disclosure agreement was requested due to worries that trade secrets and sensitive information could be leaked during the process to judge eligibility for funding. The Department of Commerce is expected to review these requests and announce any amendments within the year. Moon Hae-ryun, Arirang News.
Staying with local news, the number of newborns has hit a record low for the month of March. Findings by Statistics Korea on Wednesday show 21,138 babies were born in March, down over 8% on year. Meanwhile, some 28,000 people lost their lives in March, also down over 35% on year. Given these tallies, Korea's natural population decline in March stood at over 7,000. The decline has been in motion for 41 months straight. In the world of music, 50/50 has nabbed a new record as one of its hits becomes the longest charting song by a K-pop girl group on the Billboard Hot 100. The song Cupid ranked 18th on the latest chart announced on Tuesday, placing it on the list for 9 weeks in a row. This breaks the previous record held by the song Ice Cream, a collaboration between Blackpink and Selena Gomez back in the year 2020 that was on the chart for 8 weeks. Also, 50/50 topped the ranking on the Billboard Global excluding US chart, becoming the third K-pop act to achieve the feat following BTS and Blackpink. In the world of literature, the novel Time Shelter by Bulgarian writer Georgi Gospodinov won this year's International Booker Prize. His work was translated by Angela Rodel. The Korean author Chun Myung-kwan's novel Whale, translated by Kim Ji-young, was among the 6 shortlisted books. This year marks the 4th time a Korean literary work was nominated for the annual prestigious award. It applauds the best piece of fiction that has been translated into English and published in the UK or Ireland.
Let's take a look at what's going on in the world now. We begin in Russia, as Moscow on Tuesday claimed to have defeated a group of anti-Putin Russian nationals who crossed the border from Ukraine to attack the southwestern city of Belgorod the day before. The attack prompted the region's governor to launch an anti-terrorist operation. Russia says that it killed 70 fighters and insisted that they were Ukrainian. But Kyiv has denied any links and has claimed that the attackers acted independently. Meanwhile, 2 Russian paramilitary groups say they were responsible for the incursion, with one of the groups saying that it still retains control of a small piece of land despite Russia's operation. The initial attack on Monday left 8 people injured after the attackers shelled a village. 3 houses and a local administrative building were also damaged. Moving on to the United States, where it's being reported that Florida Governor Ron DeSantis will announce his 2024 presidential bid during a Twitter Live event. Joined by its owner Elon Musk, the Republican politician is expected to make the announcement on Wednesday local time on Twitter Spaces. An official campaign video is expected to follow. The governor has hinted at a campaign launch over the past few months. The 44-year-old is viewed as the main rival to former President Donald Trump, who has already declared his presidential bid. National opinion polls show that Trump has a strong lead over other Republican contenders. Shifting to the tech space, Microsoft has unveiled a number of updates to its range of services, including a significant upgrade to ChatGPT. According to CEO Satya Nadella at the Microsoft Build conference in Redmond, Washington on Tuesday, the OpenAI software will now be linked to live search results from Microsoft's search engine Bing. ChatGPT's answers were previously limited to information from 2021 or earlier. The service is already available to paid users. It will be rolled out to its free service later. Other changes include expanding Bing plugins for businesses, which would see their services advertised on the web browser's AI chat service based on a user's question. And finally, a watch belonging to the last emperor of China has been sold for $6.2 million. It was sold by auction house Philips Asia in Hong Kong on Tuesday. Manufactured by Patek Philippe, the rare Rev 96 Quantième Lune is one of only 8 known pieces of its kind in the world. It belonged to Emperor Puyi, who became ruler of the Chinese Qing dynasty at the age of 2 in 1908, before being forced to abdicate just 4 years later. Over 2 decades on, Puyi was made leader of then Japanese-occupied Manchuria. He was captured in 1945 after Japan's defeat in World War II and taken to a Soviet prison camp. His story was documented in the Oscar-winning film The Last Emperor. Matthew Ashley, Arirang News.
Good afternoon. We had mostly sunny skies with decent air quality to begin our Wednesday with refreshing morning temperatures. Afternoon highs are rising fast to the mid to upper 20s this afternoon in most parts of the country. But strong sunshine is beaming down, boosting UV rays from high to very high across much of Korea. So please keep your sunglasses and a hat handy to protect yourself from that strong sunlight. Now, weather conditions in Gohung in Jeollanam-do province, where South Korea's space rocket Nuri is scheduled to be launched this evening, will be under partly cloudy skies with light winds, so the weather should be no problem. Now, afternoon highs are slightly higher than norms this afternoon, and as the air quality has returned to normal levels across the nation, it should be a good day to spend some time outdoors as long as you have that sun protection. Skies are getting gray with frequent rain in the forecast as we get into 3-day weekend, with Saturday marking Buddha's birthday. Now that's Korea for you, and here's a look at the international weather conditions.
And those are the headlines at this hour. We'll return with our panel session in a few minutes, so do stay with us. Thank you for now.